Welcome back to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo, North America's largest EV festival, coming to a major city near you. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast, Electrify, and this is an electric one in itself because I have a great friend of mine and a great friend of the automotive world. I love this cat, and I've learned a lot about him over the years and just seen his progression of his passion, his story, his cats, his watches, just all things, just him getting married. And everybody says his wife is even greater than him, which I haven't even met her yet. TFTI, thanks for the invite. But the gentleman that's joining us, most notably known as the Smoking Tire Podcast, but Matt Farah, thank you for joining us, dude.
Thank you, Jarod, and I'm sure Hannah, my wife, will appreciate the shout out in the intro. She is a better person than me, so she gets credit too.
Well,
yeah,
I don't like the saying like behind every great man is a better woman.
No, in front of the great man.
Big facts
is what I like to say. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mid-century modern enthusiast, owner of an electric vehicle and 8 stupid old gas-powered vehicles. Here we go. Let's do it.
If you're watching the podcast, I ironically wore this hat. So it's a NASCAR race service hat. Shout out to the race service boys. And an Elon Musk, what would be considered kind of like his rap album. Like
I think that's basically a votive candle printed on a shirt. That's pretty much what that is.
But it has like
it's definitely got the what is that? Is that the Death Row font? I think that's the Death Row.
It could be Death Row. It could be
font.
Juvenile. You know, it could be like the I don't know, what is that?
Did you see the Juvenile Tiny Desk concert? Oh,
did I ever?
Awesome.
Like a drummer chick. It was so
awesome.
Good.
I mean, it was so great. I hadn't thought about Juvenile in a minute, and then I was like, I'm going to listen to Juvenile on the way to work today. Warning, trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
You might be triggered by one of the 7 dirty words.
Yeah. Oh, don't rattle those off.
I watched that last night.
Did you?
Because like the writer's strike, like we are like out of things to watch on TV.
Yes.
Shout out to the writers. Continue striking. Don't bend. Unions, go unions. But we're out of stuff to watch, and so my wife and we're digging into the trenches of our streaming apps. Last night I watched a highlight reel, Best of George Carlin, which I mean, you don't need an excuse to watch Best of George Carlin. You could just put that on. But the night before, we found some playlist on Netflix that was like films from 1898 to 1903.
Wow.
And it's the kind of stuff that, they like train pulling into station, and it was like, It's like these hand colorized, just crazy stuff. And looks like everyone in it appears to be on hallucinogens. It's very, and the films are like, 60 seconds to 3 minutes long. Cause like that, It took them like months to make that back in the day. So
did you ever see, speaking of movies, and this is about Electrify and EV stuff, but we'll get to that. That's cute. I'm joking. Did you watch the movie Babylon with Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt?
No, I don't believe I did. No.
Okay. It's a Netflix film. It's pretty good. Also, stand-up comedians watched Shane Gillis last night, which is a very polarizing.
I did watch
cow.
Shane's
No person left behind. Also, probably the best stand-up this year, which Bill Burr was an EP on Shane Gillis.
I might argue for Segura's special.
Andrew Santino. Stop. I was saying
Santino's good too.
Okay.
Santino's good too. You just rattled off a whole bunch of people I like.
Bill Burr,
and
even
though like Shane, I met Shane when I went out to Arizona to see Bert Kreischer. Shane opened, and Bert has always been like really great to me. He is he is like, for someone who I wasn't friends with like a year ago, he's been like, I can't believe how nice he's been to me.
Yeah.
And he introduced me to like everybody, and there was like 10 comics backstage at his show, and Shane did a destroyer of a set, a lot of which ended up in the special, which I had seen him do it live. And I think Shane's hilarious. I think his act is very, very funny, even though I suspect my left-leaning political friends, which probably might not like all of it, I think he does find a way to walk that line in a way that is Well, funny. It's funny.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing with like Tito Santino's stand up. He's like, you're in the room, you're in it. This is a safe place. Like and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember for the first time I saw Adam Ray, like on the cusp of COVID, kind of, masks on, off. It was kind of your discretion, that kind of thing
Yeah.
in LA. And I saw Adam Ray, and it was just, I didn't know how it was going to go. Like it was eggshells. No, he doubled down. I thought it was like, you know what, we got to go for it. But with obviously, Me Too movement, people getting canceled, and now COVID sensitivity, and Adam Ray doubled down, which I appreciated, to be quite
Well,
honest.
I mean, look, I thought Shane's 30 minutes on learning about George Washington's slaves was, I mean, that, you know, like I'm a leftist. Like I could get down on that. Like, on tearing down the founding fathers for owning lots of slaves. Like, yeah, I'm pro
Yeah,
that. So
right,
so
right.
yeah, yeah, it's a great bit. And when I saw him do that live, it destroyed as well.
And
Um,
I think this is all setting up a good stance for where Matt Farah is at in general society, and how that feeds into your automotive experience, where you're
sure.
at, how you've contributed, your lineage. But let's get kind of back to the fact of the matter is, and I liked what you said, you own an EV, and I love your
Yeah.
experience with EV because you've been very transparent. I've brought you up actually in previous podcasts without you being on it. You've been on it. So I
Oh,
just remember,
nice.
yeah, and I think you do a good job of being blatantly honest, which, again, we talked about Elon prior to us hitting record, and
Oh,
uh,
we'll get
I,
back
I
there, I'm
we'll
sure.
get back there somehow. But here's just these pioneers, and again, back in the day of horse-drawn carriages, they had to transfer fuel somewhere. So here we are transferring now EV somewhere somehow. Notably, I liked your EV experience when you drove a Ford Lightning, and you guys made breakfast sandwiches out of the frunk of the electric EV Lightning at Pikes Peak Hill
Yeah.
Climb.
Yeah, I mean, look, there one of the biggest problems that we have as a country is we pick a thing
Mhm.
and then we just decide that that's the thing and then dismiss all other things. And that's
That
very
sounds so
dangerous.
ambiguous, but what do
Well,
you
I
mean?
mean, we as a country, as a government, have decided that electric is going to be the thing.
Mm,
Everyone needs to drive an electric car. We're going to need electric semi trucks. We're going to need electric this, electric that. But we don't really want to invest in the infrastructure. And so everyone needs to have these gigantic batteries. We all need to have a
mhm.
300-mile electric car. You ever notice how, when we're talking about gas cars, nobody ever talks about the size of the gas tank? Nobody gives a shit. We talk
Right,
about
right.
miles per gallon as an measure of efficiency of the engine, but
Yeah.
no one is ever like, well, the Porsche 911 has an 18-gallon tank, and the Lamborghini Huracan has a 14-gallon tank, and therefore the 911 is better than the Huracan because it can go farther on a tank. And the reason that doesn't matter is because we have a national infrastructure of rapid refueling stations.
Mm,
If we had that as a priority, with the same kind of priority we had, say, the interstate highway system or something like that, then we wouldn't need to equip everyone's car with a gigantic battery. Um, but um, we're putting the car before the charger right now, and we've decided that EV is the way, and so they're doing things like making pronouncements that in California gas car sales will be banned after 2035, but there's not really a plan for how to charge all of those cars, and so it keeps capitalism and consumerism going. We need to buy these new expensive, we need to replace our old, whatever. But we're going to end up with a problem when no one can really charge these cars. Our state that's saying everyone needs an electric car every summer has to ask people to somehow throttle
yeah.
their power usage. because we don't have a way to generate the power in a stable way that meets everybody's needs. And so I think there are multiple avenues that we could be exploring. Um, One is electric, and I do like my electric car. And I think that when people ask me if they should buy an electric car, my answer is your electric car isn't going to save the planet the same way your personal pickup truck or Suburban isn't going to wreck the planet. You know, massive decisions on a grand scale will swing that in one way or another. You should buy an electric car if it'll improve your lifestyle somehow.
What EV vehicle do you own?
I have a Ford Mach-E,
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
which I
I've seen it.
like. I
Yeah.
like it. It's I don't have the really fast one, the GT. I have a rear wheel drive, long range, which suits my needs as in a Los Angeles runaround vehicle perfectly well. And on the
Yeah.
occasion I have to drive it to Palm Springs or San Diego or Vegas, I've been able to do that relatively inconvenience free. Um,
I had somebody
Relatively.
earlier on podcast, an episode prior to yours. I like their explanation of the EV. It's a gadget. It's a
Yeah, it's a
thing.
toaster. It's a
Yeah.
toaster. My Mach-E is most certainly not a Mustang, and
Right.
I will never call it a Mustang. It's not a Mustang. That is a shameful marketing play, but it is a toaster, and
Ford,
as a
I'm cool with you.
toaster, it's
This
a
is
great
not this is
toaster.
opinions not of mine. This is Matt. Like I'm just kidding. I
Well,
know.
whatever.
But they're still owning your cars, right? Like you're getting media vehicles, and you bought it. You bought into
Yeah.
and I know. I had the same
Well,
conversation with
to open and I leased it. I don't want to own
right.
outright any electric car. I think one of the biggest downsides of electric cars, and this may prove untrue over time, but I believe um, these are disposable items. They're
Mm,
not built to last 40 or 50 years or even really 20 years. I mean, in the same way that a laptop or a cell phone isn't built to last like that. So I don't want to be left holding the bag.
yeah.
So I'll lease it, I'll give it back. And and oh, by the way, there's like that ain't green. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
I
Oh.
got a bunch of cars that are some of which are more fuel efficient than others, but
Yeah.
every single one of them is a long-term keeper. You know,
Mm,
none of my other cars, my collector cars, are the kind of vehicle that short of a major accident or a fire or something would end up in the scrap heap ever. My
yeah.
other cars, which include a Lamborghini Countach and a Ferrari 328 and an Acura NSX and an Aston Martin Vanquish, even if I sell them, those are going to be on the road as someone's car for, I mean, you know, probably until the end of time, right? Because they're culturally significant. They're fun and they're recreational kind of things. And those cars are going to be kept running and on the road forever.
Mm,
Whereas when I give back my Ford in April, like who knows what that car's next
right.
10 years will look like? I don't know. But
What would
it's not a foregone conclusion.
what sorry to cut you off. What do you think
Yeah.
would make that vehicle a EV vehicle more relevant in your mind, in Matt Farah's mind, where, like you said, you rattled off some amazing vehicles, and I know you're a fan of equity, right? Like watches,
Mhm.
fashion, cars, things, tchotchkes, gadgets. What would make an EV vehicle relevant in your eyes? And a two-part question, because you do a great job of elaborating and just kind of let you go in
Mhm.
motion. Are you a fan of kind of the EV hot rods that are coming into play? Because like if it's BC Moto or Rywire, even Jonathan Ward. I saw you got a nice jacket from Jonathan the other day.
John's the
Congratulations,
best.
beautiful, beautiful.
The
I
best.
love what Jonathan's doing, right? And we do.
Yeah.
So there you go. Here we go.
So,
15
okay.
minutes.
I mean,
Go.
look, am I interested in EV sports cars? No, not really. No, not yet. Nobody so far. I mean, I've driven the Ramat's Navara. I've met Mate. I know the
Mm,
Ramat's team. And it's not like I don't think they do a great job. I think they're doing a great job. But I've driven that Navara and And as amazing as the technology is, and as amazing as that is for a first product, and of course, we're talking about the fastest accelerating production car in history. They just set like 20 records at once. It's like $3 million, and it's 2,000 horsepower, or as close as makes no difference, and it runs like an 8.6 quarter mile, which I did allegedly on the street in Malibu, and you can just do that. You know what I mean? So, so I am a fan of what it can be accomplished with that type of power. Am I interested in owning an electric sports car of any kind for myself? No, because as I learned with the Navara, and as I've learned with the Taycan Turbo S and other very fast electric cars, until you are, the power is insane. But unless you're doing that thing, if you're in a Navara and you're not running an 8-second quarter mile, you might as well be in a Model 3. At 5 or 10% throttle, there is almost no difference between a 2,000 horsepower car and a 200 horsepower car. I've driven the Taycan Turbo S, which is 750 horsepower. I've driven the base Taycan, which is about 380 horsepower, I think. Oh, don't hold me to that number, but it's something like that. High threes.
Yeah.
Until you are at the back half of the pedal, those cars are exactly the same. In a way that if you drive a V6 Dodge Challenger that you get from Hertz versus a Hellcat Redeye, those cars are very different even when idling in traffic. You don't need to be going full throttle or going fast to feel and experience the difference between a Hellcat and a V6 Challenger. And you can apply that metaphor to any other gasoline-powered vehicle. Yeah. And so for me, one of the things that I like about sports cars and watches, right, and is the interaction that I'm having with a machine. Okay, do I want to save the planet? Sure, I do. I want a livable planet. Do I believe in renewable energy? Sure, I do. Do I want to see our appliance-like vehicles and our commercial vehicles converted to emissions-free fuel source? Yeah, sure, I do. But so far, in my experience, sports cars are a very small subset. Very exciting and analog sports cars are a subset of a subset. Classic cars are an even smaller subset of that. And I just wrote a column for this about Road and Track about this. When I see business, I don't care what anyone does with their own car. You want to rip out your engine and put an electric motor in it, and you think that's better for your personal taste. Like, have at it. Cool. Enjoy yourself. Don't care. I don't care what anyone does to their car anymore. I used to care. I don't care. But when I see a 911 or a Shelby Cobra or a Boss 302 or whatever converted to electric, and it's not when I see, it's not my emotional reaction to its existence that bothers me, but I've driven them. And every time I drive one, the person who built it tells me about how it's 2 seconds quicker to 60, and the weight distribution is pretty much the same, and this and that. And then I drive it, and it is deeply boring. Even if it is objectively the thing that they say it is. And that's because me personally and my friends, I can't speak for anyone outside of my social circle, I don't seek out a Shelby Cobra or an air-cooled 911 or a muscle car because it's the fastest thing out there. They're frequently not. Mm-hmm. But it is an engagement with man and machine for which the specific sound, feel, and operation of the power plant is crucial to experiencing that particular vehicle. And these conversions typically are worse classics than if they were left alone and tuned up properly. And they're worse EVs than the toaster that's sitting in my driveway right now. And so they've ended up in a place that I don't find particularly interesting or desirable. You're left with a costume of an old sports car, but that's it. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think there's room in the world for that. Imagine if we spent those resources converting old cars to EV whose powertrains were liabilities rather than assets. The Volkswagen Microbus with 48 horsepower. Wouldn't that be nicer with 150 electric horsepower? 59 fin-tail Cadillac Eldorado. With that car, we talk about smooth, silent cruising, and electricity would offer a type of refinement and power that was unavailable given the tech of the day, but that Cadillac almost certainly would have sought out if it was. Old Rolls Royces or truck, I mean, the Grand Wagoneer, where you've got like 6.5 liters of power for 140 horsepower and 3 miles per gallon. I mean, stuff like that where the powertrain is deeply secondary to the style and the cruising, and the weight doesn't matter because it's heavy already. And so I would love a 59 Eldo, like Neil
Mm,
Young, big cruiser to silently kind of roll up PCH. And I don't even know what kind. I mean, it's probably a V8, but I don't even know
yeah,
what kind of engine is in a 59 Eldo, nor do I care.
right.
It's just not integral to that experience, the way an air cooled engine is in a Porsche or or a big V8 with a lumpy cam is in a Cobra or a muscle car. So I don't care what anyone does to their own car. Have at it,
Yeah.
knock yourself out. But it's not that doesn't interest me because I don't think those cars are improved by that.
Well, yeah, what you're describing to me, I liked what you said about the costume. So there's these costumes of vehicles, like you said, an Eldo, Rolls Royce. The motor's kind of irrelevant at some point,
Totally,
so why
totally
why not
irrelevant.
make it efficient? So that's some complementary hot rodding, and
Mhm.
you're actually complementing the vehicle with the experience and given the right tool for the job. If you're
Totally,
cruising
totally.
PCH, you want to hear the ocean of the waves crash.
Yeah,
You don't want to hear
yeah. It's
right?
one of the
I love
reasons I
that.
love. You know what I love? Electric off-roading. Electric
Yeah.
off-roading is great. You ever take a
Yeah,
Rivian up a trail? I mean, you open the windows. And yeah, you hear some, gravel crunching under the tires, but I mean, you're really you don't
your
really think
senses are
about
alive.
how much. Yeah, you're really
Yeah,
kind of outside with the nature. Now, this of course assumes you're, not doing something horribly destructive with the truck. You're keeping
right.
it on the trail and you're treading lightly as light as you can in a 7,300 pound vehicle. But I do find that to be a delightful experience. And if you talk about something like a Rivian or an electric F-150 Lightning, like you mentioned with the Pikes Peak thing, something I think is also a complementary experience with the F-150 Lightning in particular is Ford has done a great job of sitting down and going, what are some things that we could facilitate given the fact that you are lugging around a gigantic power source?
Mhm.
So, the ability to run tools, or in my case, run two 60-inch griddles at the top of Pikes Peak and make bacon, egg, and cheeses for everybody, and run a live podcasting studio from the front, and use so little of that power. You want to go off grid camping, but be able to keep a fridge cold and keep your emergency devices and your lights going for days and days and days. I think that's a very cool use of that product. Um,
It is more of a tool and a gadget and all these things. And then so you kind of touched into something. I'm off to Detroit. I believe this is airing next week or even this Wednesday. So we'll have to pay attention to this. But it was already announced. You saw the vehicle, but they're doing some activation. So I won't go out of line here. I've actually have a call after this with Ford because I'm going to Detroit and working with them. And the Mustang Mach E Rally was
yeah,
debuted at
interesting.
Goodwood Festival Speed.
Yeah,
So
I
to
was
your
there
point,
actually. Yeah, and
yeah.
I saw it. I saw it run. Yeah.
What's your take?
I mean, it
Mach
looks
E
cool.
Rally.
It
So here's
looks
this.
cool. I mean, I've been a little bit critical of the Mach-E GT. I think they nailed some things with that vehicle and missed in some other places. I think that considering Ford is using magnetic ride in the GT, I think both the comfort and the sports settings are way too stiff. And I think they need to move that comfort setting into a much more comfortable ride for the city. I tried pitching this to like 3 different executives, including Jim Farley. Maybe you can nudge him too. I think they should do a GT, right? But rear wheel drive only, with a comfort setup for the shocks, okay? And not quite so aggressive of a tire, but keep the GT seats, which I love, and keep
Yeah.
the GT exterior cues and call it LX.
Okay.
And I
Eddie
think
Bauer
that,
edition. We're going old
yeah,
school. It's going to be
you should
green,
definitely.
tan, right? I
That
mean,
would be fun. Wouldn't that
that'd
be a
be really
fun
fun.
rap? That would be a fun
That'd be,
rap on my Mach-E if I went Eddie Bauer. That would be pretty fun. So
but that was it. That's
that's
what you're
my
talking
pitch.
about.
My
Yeah.
pitch to them would be like a long range rear wheel drive version of the GT that rode a little better, but was presented as LX. I thought that would be, and they could do the Fox body gauge cluster like they've done in the new Mustang sports
Yeah.
car, which I did. I thought it was hokey when they announced it, and then when I went on the launch of the GT, I put that shit in Fox body, and it stayed there all day. I was like, actually, this is dope.
Oh, you're saying that the concept of saying you could go retro, all the generations
Yeah,
and
you could. Yeah,
iterations.
yeah. I mean, you've
Yeah.
got, it's all screens, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just get the UI people in there and go retro.
What do you think
So
of the
the rally.
okay, go ahead. Yeah. Go.
No, no. What's up?
No, I want you to finish this rally, and then I'm gonna. You could segue from their
Okay.
latest to their latest ice, which is obviously the GTD
Yeah, yeah. I saw
and
that
all
too at
the whole
Pebble.
GT thing. So what's interesting, and
Oh,
we keep talking about Ford here, is Toyota's made this statement about I mean they were pioneers with hybrid, right, and what they were
mhm.
doing and all that, and even going to the Mira, right, and then here's Ford concurrently doing both, like kind of making
Right.
both camps happy,
Right. So, the
rally.
rally I saw at Goodwood, it looks neat. I mean, it looks like, what you think. It looks like a Mach-E with like, rally wheels. And
Yep.
so, number one concern is how do those wheels and tires affect your efficiency, right? Because I it's a cool look, and it's probably, I'd like to think it's a fun toy, but Ford EVs have, in my personal experience, had very funky traction control issues that present themselves in certain ways. Where if you go up a steep driveway and one wheel comes off the ground a little bit, or you hit a bump in a weird way, their traction control can really act up, particularly in the GT. So I hope that if you're really supposed to be driving this thing on trails, I really hope that at the very least you can fully disable the systems. Like, you really want that. But I tried to ask them at Goodwood and they would not answer. I tried to ask them at Pebble Beach. They would not answer. And I just sent another email to Mike Levine at Ford asking for clarification, and he would not answer. Is this Mach E Rally equipped with magnetic ride, and is it programmed softer than the GT? Because I need to replace my Mach E in the spring, and I
There we
would
go.
love another one if it had mag ride with a softer suspension. And they
Matt
will not answer.
came out swinging out of the gate. I love it.
It's
Just
such a basic
you're
question.
no, it's good. No, but I love your like, I don't know. Yeah, I might be bought in. Like
I might
and
be
that's what
buying in.
and this is back to my point. If you don't know who Matt Farah is, I'm gonna dote on you if you were in the room or you weren't. And they're like, Matt, people, and I'm not gonna name names, people, I'm like, Matt, I think is really, and take this the right way. You've really grown into your own skin. I think you do such a really good job. And I'm telling you, like you you've done just a really fantastic job of being polarizing, but still having that backhanded kind of compliment and then slam or
Well,
degradation,
look,
but breaking it
nothing
down to
and
building it up.
nobody are perfect, right? There's no
No.
perfect people and there's no perfect cars. And if you can recognize both, and I include myself in
Yeah.
that, you know, and the world is very gray. The world is very muddy, and so there's companies and people that do great things, and then they also can do some things that are misses, and most people are trying, but not always succeeding. And so, So when my lease is up, I'm going to replace that vehicle with another electric car. My wife and I have decided that an electric car is great. And that, by the way, that we share that car. And we went from each having our own gas powered cars to now sharing one electric car for most of our errand running and whatever. Granted, she works from home, but
Yeah.
still. And then we have a bunch of old stupid cars that we play around with for fun, but and spend their time most of the time parked. But we're going to be replacing that car with another car. So there's Matt, automotive journalist, want to get the truth, want to be objective about what this is and what this isn't. But like I buy cars too, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm a consumer also, and
No.
I
That
want both.
you talked about, and you're talking about your collection of your Countach and your Ferrari, and you talked about how you didn't bring up your strawberry ice, Porsche that you hot rodded.
Yeah.
I mean, what a cool car there. So you're a proponent of all these vehicles that you've curated or you've been a fan of, or you as a kid had posters on your walls, or even your pops had them or whatever. And now here you're owning them. But you talked about how you romanticize the vehicles. Now you're like, they're stupid cars. That's to my point of Matt Farah's
Well, yeah.
brand. That's what I'm
Yes.
talking about. I
Yes.
really love that you have the ability to do that, and that comes with equity. So this, I'm again, stoking your horn. I'm stoked on where you're at because you do have that ability to have the polarization, but the affinity at the same time. So it's just,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Well, they are.
this
I
is what I
mean, they
call.
are stupid cars. They're not practical, but they're what's great about cars. There's I think there's always this kind of like rub between like car people and urbanists, and
Mhm,
they always frame it as being between car enthusiasts and urbanists. And I really want to break that down because people that are addicted to car dependency, to driving everywhere, to always wanting free, available upfront parking, to not wanting to have cool, dense, walkable cities with plenty of places to eat and shop. It's framed as for a lot of people that the urbanists are against car enthusiasts, but my position is that car enthusiasts, lots of us, can also be urbanists. I like driving my cars for recreation and for road trips and to go up in the mountains or to go to a racetrack or to go to a like-minded gathering of people or with bagels and coffee in the morning. But I also want to walk to dinner. I also don't like traffic. I also don't like smog. I also don't like congestion. And I can appreciate other places that I've been around the world that have solved that situation better than a lot of places in America. Um, and when you drive around in Europe, and as I know you've done a
mhm.
bunch, you know, the culture, and part of that has to do with the price of gas and whatever, but also the tax structure and everything. you know, People buy the car that covers their needs 95% of the time, and then if they need something else, they rent it. And here we buy cars based on this. Well, what if I need to move a couch one day? And it's like, Bob, you haven't moved a couch since 1987. Why do you need to prepare for that possibility? And if you do need to move a couch, Home Depot is over here. You rent a U-Haul for $19 for an hour and a half. Like
Yeah.
so.
You have like this
Um,
almost this Larry David-esque kind of way about you in the automotive perspective. You're like, "You don't need a truck." I mean, that
you
was more
don't need it.
Seinfeld,
Yeah, you
Larry
don't.
David, but, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. And I mean, look, I have 8 cars. I don't need 8 cars,
oh,
but
you have a garage that
um,
can fit them though, so that's
well,
congratulations
and
to
that's
you.
the other thing. My parking business, West Side Collector Car Storage, is a clean, environmentally friendly, and very dense place for people who live in urban environments to keep their cars not at their home. So if
Mhm.
someone wants to collect cars, but they also want to live in a condo or an apartment or a beach house, they don't need all this space. They can keep their car right up the road with me, and it serves that community. So like, yeah, I am an urbanist who also owns a parking lot. Like, yes, but I recycle all of my water. I'm earthquake proof. I'm fireproof. We have 130 cars stored in 10,800 square feet at Playa Vista. So it's very dense. You can't see them from the outside. You're not looking at a parking lot. You're just looking at a well-designed building. And so we've tried to do our best to be invisible in the neighborhood, but be available to the kind of people that want to live in dense areas and also want to collect cars.
I feel like you're also a proponent of other EV experiences, though. Not just let's
Mm.
like e-bikes. Like I don't
I
see you on a
love my e-bike.
I don't see you on a one wheel, but I see
No,
you
but
on the e-bike.
I e-bike to the office all the time. I have a vintage electric e-bike. Have you ridden one of
There you
those?
go. I have, and they look great. I saw Chris Jacobs had them out there in Monterey, and they're ripping around. And that what a great
Dude, they
compliment
are
there.
very dangerous. my e-bike, my
Or are
e-bike goes
you
like
a bad
40.
driver on that thing?
Dude, it goes like 45 miles an hour. It's so shady.
But what other EV experiences? You know, you go to Electrify Expo, you go to show
Yeah.
off, you know, and what other EV experiences are you either currently dabbling in and sampling, or are you excited about?
Well, I do love e-bikes. I joke about how fast mine is, but I actually think the speed is a benefit in this case because from my house to my office is very it's not very far, and it's on a nice day. I mean, if it's not raining, like I do e-bike, and I also have a Vespa. My main everyday runaround vehicle is a Vespa. So I'm kind of European in that regard. But I do have to e-bike down a 6-lane road with no dedicated bike lane, and so being able to go fast is actually an asset there.
Yeah.
If I could only go 15 or 20 miles an hour, it would not be as safe, I think, as being able to, if I need to, go a little faster.
Yeah, you can always
Um,
dial it down, you can't dial it up, right?
yeah,
So
but
that's
I
you and your
love the
fever lever.
mobility that electric vehicles offer senior citizens or people who would want to look. I like to commute on a bike, but that doesn't mean I want to get to work sweaty. Sorry, I don't. I exercise every day, but I don't want that exercise to happen on the way to my office where I'll be in those clothes for 8 hours.
Have you seen the Family
So
Guy skit, Bikes to Work Guy? Yeah, okay. Well, just go and look it up if you want. It's
Yeah,
just
and everyone who's worked in an office has worked with someone like that, and so
yeah.
I think that farther than your feet but closer than a car.
Mhm.
I really like the idea of e-bikes a lot. I also like the idea of neighborhood electric vehicles. Some of them are really cool. I mean, for so long, all we had was the Gem, which was such like a dorky vehicle, and now you've got Myers Manx with their new four-seater
Mhm.
that looks super cool, and you've got other neighborhood electric vehicles that are a little cooler looking. And I love those.
Giara, right? Isn't there the Giara, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's more of a golf cartish looking thing.
yeah. I mean, my folks have a place down in South Carolina that is a big. There's a big golf cart community there, and a lot of people. A golf cart is a very great way to get around a low speed environment, and it solves a lot of it's good transportation. It's limited in speed, so it's safer for pedestrians and yada yada yada. Young kids could drive it instead of a car, but in theory, but
Yeah, exactly.
but also for short distances of a mile or two, that's sort of the dirtiest part of a car's operation as it comes up to temperature, and so it solves. It does allow you to spare your car those kinds of trips.
Yeah, I
Um,
was in, New York just this last weekend, and, a couple of things. I was talking to the homeboy at a lounge. He was a former amateur hockey player, I don't know what you call it, kind of semi-pro. And he's like, golf carts were the first EV vehicle. I mean, if you look at it theoretically, right? And then also the other thing is, yeah, conditioning, man. I haven't been to New York probably since like 2017. It's been a minute. And I was with some people from Wisconsin, right? They're from Snap-on, and we all Ubered. We didn't use the subway, man. It was hot. So that was number one. It was really hot. So you get in that subway. I don't know if
yeah,
you've seen the Instagram subway creatures. I just didn't want to,
yeah,
but there's that conditioning of, and we went and visited Lee Quinones, this OG graph artist, and he rode his e-bike out after he showed us. He's like, "You guys aren't taking the subway? It's like right there, probably quicker." I was like, Yeah, and actually what picked us up? A Tesla. A Tesla Model Y picked us up.
So it's, you know, New York City is a tough one. I've lived there. I lived there for 3 years. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City, and like, yeah, in August, yeah, you don't want to be in the subway. Like, totally get that.
Mhm.
10 months of the year, the subway is where it's at for sure. I
Absolutely.
would take it all the time. I mean, is it the best subway system in the world? Like, no, it needs some major upgrades, but it is convenient. And I mean, for me, I don't think I just read an amazing book by Henry Graybar called "Paved Paradise: How Parking Explains the World," and it's basically about. It's not like some crazy commie shit. It's literally a capitalist viewpoint on parking and how most parking in the country is vastly underpriced and undervalued. And so, for instance, in New York City, you've got all of this free street parking. And there are some meter spaces as well, but for the most part, it's free street parking. And the value, you could have a $20 million brownstone, but that 400 square feet in front of is free. And it basically, all residents of New York City are subsidizing the vehicle owner for that with that free parking, because if those were metered spaces, it would drive enormous revenue for the city that
Yeah.
could, for instance, be used to upgrade the subways. And
Never thought
and
about that.
oh, dude, I mean, how you think about um, really high value neighborhoods like the Village in New York City, or like the Bird Streets or Hollywood in Hills, or like parts of Santa Monica in LA, or
Yeah.
Brentwood.
Venice Beach,
And
right?
yeah, where some of the highest value neighborhoods, you can't build certain the parking regulations for how many spaces you must provide for each. It prevents some really beautiful designs and some really good urban housing being
Mhm.
built for people that may not have cars or want them, and at the at everyone's expense. And so I New York City especially is basically everyone who doesn't have a car with their taxes is subsidizing everyone who does. I don't think it should be easy to drive in New York City. New York City
No.
should prioritize pedestrians and bikes and the subway at the expense of cars, because it's the densest place in America. Ugh. I don't
It's
doesn't mean I don't
nuts.
want it doesn't mean I don't
Yeah.
want, by the way, someone in Jackson, Wyoming to not be able to drive to Butte or to New York City, but like
Absolutely.
in those areas, select areas, like in Venice Beach, where I used to live up until last year,
Yep.
Windward Avenue from the Circle to the ocean, just there. We don't need cars on that street. We could have outdoor dining and outdoor vendors and have a beautiful walkable street, and people would just park 2 blocks away,
Yeah.
or and by the way, this worked in Times Square. Everyone bitched and bitched and bitched and bitched and bitched, and now guess what? It's just fine. And all of the businesses that are in Times Square are all making even more money, because business owners typically overestimate the number of people arriving by car and underestimate the number of people that are arriving by other methods.
You have such a good vantage point, man. I don't think we got a definitive opinion. You just give really good food for thought, man. And I really appreciate your
It's
worldly
because there's not one
experience.
solution for
Yeah.
everybody. And so many people, they hear someone go, "Well, I think the densest parts of New York City should not have cars. I think the
Yeah.
blocks in front of elementary schools should not have cars." And
Yeah.
then they go, "You're going to take my car away!" Ah! And they lose their shit, because they're 1,000 miles away, and they see it as being some kind of slippery slope. But it's not a one size fits all solution. There are places in this country, lots of them,
Mhm.
where driving makes sense and public transit does not. There are other places in this country, plenty of them, where driving should be a distant second or third choice, and we can make policy choices. It's not about bans.
Yeah.
Forget bans.
It's so
But we
definitive. They
can
want to make it yes or no. There's
It's not
gray.
about bans.
Yeah.
Let's just accept the fact that both incentives and disincentives work. We can incentivize one thing, we can disincentivize this other thing, and that will move the needle. Right now, we have that 6,000 pound gross vehicle weight write off thing. We are incentivizing with our tax money buying a bigger and heavier vehicle specifically over a certain weight. Why are we doing that? We don't have, that's a policy choice. We could instead incentivize buying the smallest, lightest weight vehicle. People want to buy a big G Wagon or F 150 or Super Duty. They can. We're not talking about a ban. But why are the rest of us subsidizing that with our taxes? Like, we're not saying ban trucks. We're not saying ban cars. We're just saying maybe incentivize the good thing and take away the incentives that we've been giving to the bad thing.
You have such, I love it. I could go on. I can go on for days. I'm going to wrap it up here on a fun note. You love collecting things in tchotchkes, so I got to ask what watch you're wearing and what shoes you're wearing. I know you're not a huge shoe guy. You're more of a Hey Dudes kind of guy. Do you own a pair of Hey Dudes?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I do know what that is, but
Okay.
I don't own one.
I
So I'm
thought I saw you wearing them at the Quail the other day.
mm. So did I tell you about how I collect shoes? I do
Uh,
something that's wildly different than most
no,
other people
I
do.
don't think you have told me this.
So first off, I've never sold a pair of shoes ever. Okay.
Got it.
So I wouldn't say I really collect shoes. That's probably the wrong word. But what I
You
do is
accumulate.
this is amazing. I buy really cool shoes. Okay. One pair at a time. And then I wear them as gym shoes in the gym,
Hmm.
which is in my house. I have a gym in my house, and I wear them in the gym. I don't really wear them outside. Okay. If I have to go outside, I go outside. But I pretty much wear them in the gym and then take them off for like a year. They'll be my gym shoes. Okay. And then I take them to this place up the street, the shoe lab, have them
Yeah.
cleaned for about a third of the cost of the shoes. And then only after that do they become going out shoes. So they're the gym shoes first, and then they become the going out shoes later. Is
So you
that
have a
weird?
break-in period.
I
No,
have a
it
break-in
is
period.
kind of weird. I'm not gonna
It
lie.
is.
I've
Most
never.
people do not do that.
You set the seals in them, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes absolute sense for Matt Farah to do that, but I've never
Right.
heard of anybody doing that.
I want my brand new shoes to give me support when I'm exercising.
And you're not saying they look like Magnus Walker's dunks, Magnus
No,
and
no,
his
no.
dunks.
I have brand new basketball shoes. I love New Balance, so I buy the
Oh,
Kawhi
there you go.
Leonards.
There you
Those
go.
are
I
those
like
are
that.
my jam. The Jolly Rancher collabs, like all over that.
Love it.
And because they're not like Jordans, but they're still colorful and cool, people are like, "What are those? Those are interesting." Because
Yeah.
nobody looks to New Balance for cool shoes except me.
Yeah. I
And
like Hoka's. I like Hoka's, New Balance,
yeah,
Asics. My homie, shout out to Mark at Asics. And of course, I'm all over the board. So
yeah.
yeah,
So
like you
I
are
don't
with
collect
watches.
shoes. Yeah,
So what do you got?
I'm wearing a Rolex Daytona with a Tahitian black pearl dial because I'm being a bit
Oof.
of a D bag right now.
Oh,
I
that is
don't.
slick.
I know it's fire, but I actually don't wear it very often because I'm not that flashy and I beat my watches up.
Yeah.
So I usually wear steel watches, but this one's been in the box for like 2 months, and I was like, I didn't wear it for you. I didn't wear it for you. I wore it because it needed exercise.
Right. Yeah, you're gonna wear that to the
I
gym
didn't.
too and get it cleaned up. I got my Omega back. That's the nicest watch,
I
but I
love
did go to.
your Planet Ocean is a superior watch. That is an
Thank you.
excellent all the time watch,
Thank
you
you.
are a man of taste.
Thank you. And I went to the AP invite only. You have to make a reservation in New York,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
down in Soho, and with my buddy Mark, and he called my Omega a Passat.
It probably costs the same as a used Passat. You could get a used Passat for the same price as that
Probably a
Omega.
wagon, which I love wagons.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no,
Well,
Matt.
if you want to feel poor, go to an AP boutique. They'll talk about
Oh,
a $300,000 watch like it's just like another day at the office.
And then you can't buy them. It's unobtainium. So it's a
Yeah.
whole different experience, which I it was cool. Shout out to Mark and Tim. We had a great time in New York. Matt, I could go on with you for days. Really enjoy. I canceled on you last week, so I appreciate you being flexible. Love what you're
You saying
doing.
I got canceled?
No, you didn't get canceled. No, I canceled on you. No, it's no, too soon.
Canceled.
Canceled. Step in my office. Get out.
Thanks, buddy. Good talking
Thank
to
you,
you.
man. Yeah, I want to come check out your house. Got to play some golf.
I'm telling you, we got cat tunnels all over the place. This is
I
what's
can't
up.
fit in that. I can't fit through the tunnel. Sorry.
I'm
I'll look
sorry
like
we didn't have any feline visitors on this show.
no cameos, no
I know,
catios.
very
Can we
nice,
call them
very nice.
catios? Cat
We have a
cameos?
catio. No, a catio is the outdoor cat
Catio.
enclosure. We have a catio. It's a patio for cats.
I love it. Matt, thank you so much. I won't take up any more
All
of your
right.
time.
Thanks,
Really
Jarod.
appreciate you. And again, Smoking Tire, check him out on IG and on YouTube. He's hanging out with Jerry Seinfeld and Leno and I mean Spike and
West Side Collector
Lieberman.
Car Storage, more important.
Oh.
West Side Collector Car Storage in Los Angeles if you want to live in an urban environment and also collect cars.
Thanks for listening to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo. Be sure to catch full video episodes on YouTube at Electrify TV and follow along on social media for daily clips and more.